Hello, my name is Richard Green, and today we're going to consider what we mean by the process approach and how we might get our employees to follow it. So, what is the process approach? What do we mean by this? Well, the introduction to 9001-2015 tells us the following. Consistent and predictable results are achieved more effectively and efficiently when activities are understood and managed as interrelated processes that function as a coherent system. So, if we're going to optimise our QMS, we need to understand not just what our core processes are, but crucially, how all of these fit together. Let me explain with the help of the toaster. I ran a training course in Japan recently, and in the restaurant, prior to attending the course, there was a toaster, and this is the toaster. Within the toaster, there are a number of processes going on. There's a loading process whereby the bread is put into the toaster. There's a conveying process which actually draws the toast through the toasting machine. There's a grilling process which applies the heat. And there's an injection process which throws the toast out. Now, this system functioned really effectively up until about 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it ceased to, it stopped. And we ended up with non-conforming output, untoasted bread. So what had happened? Well, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the restaurant got busy. And what happened was the waiter actually sped up the rate of conveyance through the system. Now, this would have been fine if they'd have increased the heat and the grilling, but they didn't. They changed one process in isolation, and that had the effect of generating non-conforming output. But they didn't understand how all of these processes fitted together. They didn't understand the process approach. Is the process approach new? Well, no, it's been around since the year 2000, but evidence suggests that actually it's still poorly understood. 2015 places increased emphasis on the process approach. And although it's not explicitly mandated that you must follow this, effectively the requirements set out in clause 4.4 really drive you down a process approach route. So what are the various steps you need to go through to implement a process approach? Well, TC 176, who is the technical committee responsible for overseeing the development of 9001 standards, produced some guidance. They produced guidance in 2000. And though it's slightly out of date and needs a refresh, actually it's still very usable. And this was guidance on the concept and use of the process approach for management systems. And it's worth a look. And what this says is that the first step is you need to systematically define your core QMS processes and also their interrelationships. Now, if your organisation is complex, actually defining these processes could take quite some time. You then need to use Plan, Do, Check, Act to manage and improve these processes. And you need to employ risk-based thinking to make sure that your processes are delivering the expected results. Are we doing this anyway? Well, actually, most organisations aren't. Many organisations are structured around departments, and departments would typically be managed by a departmental head, and their focus really is in terms of what goes on within their own area, their silo. Most departmental heads will never actually interact with the external customer. They only deal with internal customers as work is produced and moved from one department to another. And as such, they're actually divorced from how the customer feels. And if the organisation is actually setting KPIs of a department, then this compounds the problem, because what you'll typically find is that departmental heads will work very hard to improve how processes work within their own department, but will somehow overlook the effect that those improvements could potentially have further down the line, the impact that that might have on what comes next. We need to work differently. So the process approach actually introduces horizontal management. workflows across the organisation rather than in buckets. Processes are controlled as they move across departmental boundaries. And what we typically see in such a structure is that someone is responsible for the process from start to finish. And these people are therefore positioned to see the whole picture, right from process initiation through to process completion. They understand as well what stakeholders want the process to deliver. And they have delegated authority to act. To realise this, they can make the necessary changes to ensure that this happens. And we see in the process approach that an employee's first loyalty is to their assigned project or their products or services, not to their own department. So which processes should we include? Well, 2015 doesn't set out a list of processes that you need to embrace. And each organisation must determine these for themselves. What you should do is you should focus on your core processes, those processes that keep you awake at night, the ones that you worry about, the ones that play the most significant role in ensuring that you're constantly providing products and services which meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, and which ensure that you're enhancing customer satisfaction. You must be controlling these. Processes for claiming expenses or booking meeting rooms, secondary. They should not be on the list. Focus on the core processes. There's no substitute for involvement, so get people involved in actually building the QMS processes right from the start. The initial definition of the processes and the subsequent improvement, planned and checklist actions around those processes. And also, involve them in risk-based thinking. They're the people operating the processes at the coal face. They understand the risks, threats, but also the opportunities. Make sure you're training your individuals so that they understand their roles and accountabilities in respect to the core processes. And make sure that they're given an opportunity to actually see the process from end to end. You need to restructure your audit programme around processes, not functions. We still see far too many organisations that are auditing departments rather than auditing process flows from start to finish. And you need to train auditors to do this, because for some auditors it's alien stuff. You need to get your auditors to pay particular attention to interdependencies and interactions between processes, because these are the areas where systems typically break down. It's at the joins. And you need to make sure that you're providing documented information to support the operation of the processes and ensure that you have confidence that processes are being carried out as planned. And if that sounds a lot like procedures and work instructions, well, yes, by another name.